You headed to school.
Ooh, Alabama gets the #1 safety in the country. What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, #1. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Stanford University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to the Recruiting Blitz here on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared, Drew DeArmond. Another great hour of recruiting conversation, and you can join that conversation, 256-576-4977 on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Of course, this is our sister station, the Blitz and Blitz Sports Radio, and we bring you the Recruiting Blitz 5 days a week, and we talk recruiting. It's usually a focus on the SEC and especially our in-state schools, Alabama and Auburn. But certainly we focus on the national picture as well. We've talked some Ohio State. We've had the director of recruiting for 24/7 Sports on with us, Steve Wiltfong, who did a nice job, joined us for a few quick minutes and kind of detailed that Ohio State recruiting weekend when they took on Notre Dame and the star power that was there. Some of it connected to Alabama and the SEC, especially from the perspective of Keon Keeley. But today we talked Alabama yesterday with Joseph Hastings of the Bama Insider, part of On3Sports.com. And then on this edition, it will be the first time for him to join us on this show. It will be Jeffrey Lee, who for a long time has covered the Auburn Tigers. He is part of AU Live on 3. Auburn Live on 3, which is part of On3Sports.com, was for many years a part of AuburnSports.com and Rivals, but has switched over to On 3 and is their recruiting editor. And we look forward to speaking to Jeff Lee because Auburn is going to have a big recruiting weekend coming up. I mean, you kind of heard Brian Matthews, if you listened to Talking Ball this morning, on our sister station, he referenced some of the star power coming to Auburn this weekend. They could also be getting a commitment this Thursday. A prominent wide receiver target is getting ready to make his decision. We will certainly talk with Jeff about that, and we'll talk Tigers recruiting. This is a huge weekend for Auburn. This is a fork-in-the-road game for Brian Harsin. Brian Harsin still is on shaky ground with his future with the Auburn Tigers as head football coach. I guess that's the best way to put it. Certainly, the Auburn has been underwhelming early. They have 2 wins, no doubt about it. You never apologize for winning. I've said that. That's my mantra. You don't ever do that. No matter who you're playing, Auburn is 2-0. I mean, and they should be. I mean, they face 2 opponents that they have better rosters than. That they're the better football team, and they've been able to, get off to a good start in the second year under Brian Harsin. But as we've said, when the rubber meets the road, the key is going to be for the Tigers to, get some big-time wins. Last year, they let one slip through their fingers as far as an opportunity to beat Penn State, losing 28-20 in a hard-fought game in Happy Valley. So we'll see what happens with the Auburn Tigers. They beat Mercer 42-16 in the opening week. And then last week, San Jose State, a better team than Mercer certainly, who had Cordero, the quarterback, the transfer from Hawaii, I thought was a really scrappy player, a good player. But San Jose State led Auburn 10-7 at halftime. That's disturbing. Auburn comes back to win 24-16. But still, this is going to be a game, an opportunity for Brian Harsin. That I really don't like the term, but it really is an opportunity for a signature win in year 2 for him. Their recruiting efforts have been a little slow in getting a lot of momentum due to just the fact that he nearly was dismissed after last year when Auburn went from 6-2 and ranked in the top 15 in the country to finishing 6-7 on a 5-game losing streak, losing to Alabama in heartbreaking fashion, losing to Houston in the Birmingham Bowl. And so there was a lot of consternation by a lot of people. There was a near coup with some boosters trying to force Harsin out, which is never good, and it hurt their recruiting efforts. And so Brian Harsin also rejiggered his coaching staff, has a lot of guys, Jeff Smeding, his former DC, at Boise State in place. His former offensive coordinator, Eric Kiesow, now is the OC. So both his guys from Boise State are the coordinators now at Auburn. He brought in Jimmy Brumbaugh, and Jimmy seems to be doing a really good job on the recruiting trail. Zach Etheridge as well. Cadillac Williams he retained. So there's some Auburn flavor on that coaching staff along with the West Coast flavor, but ultimately you're going to be judged by what kind of recruiting you can do and getting the studs in there. And right now, while Tank Bigsby is a really good running back, Jarquez Hunter coming off of a strong performance against San Jose State, they're going to need to take it to another level to beat Penn State. Penn State coming in with Sean Clifford. I think he has 35 starts already for the Nittany Lions, a sixth-year guy, 24 years old, a grown man, someone that's really played well against Auburn last year. He's not going to be intimidated by Jordan-Hare Stadium, but this is still should be an electric environment. I think it will be. I think the crowd will be outstanding. It's going to be a national television audience, 2:30 CBS, so it's going to be an outstanding opportunity for Auburn and for Brian Harsin and this coaching staff to showcase the Tigers and to get some recruiting momentum. I thought it was significant that two of the top maybe three players in the state of Alabama in this loaded 2023 cycle, James Smith, Quay Russaw from Carver Montgomery, they were in Auburn for the Mercer game. They could have been in Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium watching Georgia dominate Bo Nix and former Auburn quarterback in Oregon, 49-3, but they weren't. They weren't in Tuscaloosa to watch Alabama dominate Utah State 55-0. They were in Auburn, and I think Jimmy Brumbaugh has done a good job connecting with those kids. But ultimately, it's going to come down to winning games. Auburn's got to win games in order for this recruiting class to be a top 15 group, and for Auburn to get the needed talent infusion, that I think they sorely need. Because I'll just say, so far, there hasn't been a lot of explosiveness from this Auburn offense. The quarterback position, I still think that it's iffy. TJ Finley is coming off, though, his best half of Auburn football. The second half, I believe he was 12 out of 15 against San Jose State, which went a long way to Auburn winning this game. Robbie Ashford's been a situational player, the transfer from Hoover. So we'll see how Auburn looks. Jatavius Johnson, who I really liked coming out of Hewitt-Trussville High School. Javarius Johnson, pardon me. Javarius, I thought was an underrated player. Very fast, very explosive. I thought he was going to be a really good player at Auburn. The production has been slow. Hopefully, he's starting to hit his stride. I think he's been their best receiver thus far, so they certainly need him. Shed Jackson, you know what you got with him. He's a leader. He's not going to be a super explosive guy, but he's going to do his job, going to do it well. He's the nephew of Bo Jackson, played in a winning program, winning culture in Hoover High School, so he knows what to expect. And what to do. And Shed is a fifth-year guy who has been around a long time. John Samuel Shanker, been developed as a tight end. He didn't have his best game this past week against San Jose, but I definitely think he's a guy that has NFL potential and can be play in the National Football League. And from our community, I followed this young man's recruitment from when he was in the 7th grade on through, from a great family. Such a class kid that's overcome 3 knee injuries. But Austin Troxell was named by the Auburn coaching staff as the offensive lineman of the game, starting right tackle. Certainly he's going to have to play well against Penn State on Saturday. He's back for his final year of eligibility at Auburn, back for his COVID season. Married now, fully grown. Really proud of him and what he's doing, and I hope he goes on to continue to have a solid senior season, no doubt about it. But this is a true fork-in-the-road game for Auburn. They need to fill out this recruiting class with some great players, because right now, they've basically been hovering around 12, 13, 14 in the SEC, near the bottom in the conference, and that's just not going to help you. This is a Shark Tank. You've got to have the difference makers, as Pat Dye used to say, and I don't know that Auburn has enough of them yet. That's why they need to hit some in this recruiting class. I know they really like the running back from Montgomery Catholic, Jeremiah Cobb. I think in 4 weeks he's already got 17 touchdowns, so he's certainly making an early bid to be Mr. Football in the state of Alabama, a very good player. Carmelo English from Central of Phoenix City, really solid wide receiver. So they have some solid pieces. They have 2 good edge players committed. that have a chance to be good. But certainly they want Quay Russaw. Certainly they want James Smith. They're going to continue to recruit Tamarian Parker. And it's interesting, Tamarian is at Phoenix City himself. He had 5 sacks earlier against you at Trussville. He had, I think that relationship with Auburn was not where it needed to be. He committed to Penn State, but he's reopened his recruitment. I'm sure that's another player that Auburn is going to look to very strongly to bring in and try to get, and we'll see if he's going to be on campus. I'm going to be interested as I talk to Jeff Lee to see what he's hearing as far as the initial list of recruits and who is slated to be in Auburn, because it should be the game of the day in the SEC. Certainly the Dirt Neck Bowl, NIL Bowl, whatever you want to call it, with the Texas ATM Aggies and the Miami Ruiz Hurricanes. That's going to garner a lot of attention in College Station. But it's lost some of its luster due to Texas ATM choking against Appalachian State, getting dominated in the trenches, and Jimbo Fisher once again falling on his face and not able to get a team ready to play. And Texas A&M, in my opinion, already dropping out of the national picture because I don't expect them to win the SEC East. I didn't coming in. I said they'd be an 8-4 team. I still think they will be. Appalachian State's a very good program, very underrated program, and one of the better group of 5 teams out there. Probably almost had an epic comeback to beat North Carolina at home in Boone, but again, they shouldn't be beating Texas A&M. With how much money, in NIL money especially, the Aggies had to spend to buy the number 1 recruiting class in the country last year. That should be a better football team. They should be loaded with talent and playing as one, but they're not because they're poorly coached by the most overrated coach in college football, and that's Dirt Neck Jimbo Fisher, a guy that's being paid $9.5 million to be mediocre. Yes, he beat Alabama, but again, even the sun shines on a dog's ass one time. I mean, that was a fluke. I think Alabama's going to smack them when they play them in Bryant-Denny Stadium on October the 8th. No question about it. Certainly, Texas A&M's capable. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Miami this weekend. They're a very talented team. It's just, are they going to be motivated to play? They'll certainly be motivated to play Alabama. They beat them last year, and they know Alabama's looking to get some revenge in the rematch. And I'm certain Alabama will get their best effort, but I still think Alabama's the much better team. It's a team that's, I think, the coaching staff at Alabama is much superior than what they've got going on at ATM. I know DJ Durkin's considered a solid defensive coordinator, but I don't think he's any great shakes. Alabama shredded his Ole Miss defense last year and solidly whipped them. And I know he's even consulted with Nick Saban. So Nick Saban knows DJ Durkin very well. But again, I think, to switch back to the Auburn conversation, this is a huge game for Auburn, huge game for their staff. And, it's going to be very interesting to see how they play because they're going to have to play their best game of the year. But I think they will. I honestly do. I think in some ways they probably held back, had conservative game plans against Mercer and against San Jose State. Haven't shown a lot. They need to empty the holster, so to speak, against Penn State. I watched Penn State play against Ohio University, and Purdue. So I've seen a little bit of Penn State early. I think they have a better quarterback. I think they've got more explosive players at running back, and no disrespect to Tank, who I like a lot. But this young man Singleton, this freshman, is really explosive for Penn State. I love Penn State's wide receiver core. I think they've got more options there than Auburn. But what Auburn's going to have to do is they're going to have maybe even because Sean Clifford's been injury prone, they're going to have to rattle him. They're going to have to pressure him. They're going to have to hit him. If they could knock him out of the game, it would be immeasurable for the chances for Auburn to get a win inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, no doubt about it. But what Auburn's going to have to do, they've got to create turnovers. They haven't created any turnovers in their first 2 games. I mean, and with Derek Hall, who I think is a stud that's going to play a long time in the National Football League, you've got a guy that's a great player. You've got, and I really love Leota. The graduate transfer from Northwestern. He had a really good, first year at Auburn, an underrated year. I think he may have been their best defensive player so far for the Tigers. Now, we'll get Jeff Lee's thoughts on that. I think Iku Leota is an outstanding player who's, put up really good numbers for the Tigers thus far, pressured the quarterback. Derek Hall had a really good second game, I think, and as I said, he led the team with 8 total tackles. And as I said, Leota did have a sack against San Jose, had 3 total tackles. Really like him, think he's a really good player. I'm intrigued with Keontae Scott. He also had a sack. He got there late, but he looks like he could be maybe the playmaker in that secondary as he continues to get his feet wet. Also looks like a guy that's going to be a factor in the return game. He could be maybe an X factor in this game coming up. And he's from Snow College, junior college. Coach Harsin and staff did a great job signing him late and getting him in. And they've got to get more difference makers like that, whether it be the junior college route, the transfer portal, or the high school ranks. This is why this weekend is going to be so big. It's going to be huge for Auburn, no doubt about it, and they need to get a win. If they get a win here, we've already seen that LSU is vulnerable, without a doubt. They did not play well, and had a kicking game meltdown against Florida State. Lost that game 24-23 in New Orleans. They're coming to Auburn. Auburn is a very difficult place to play when the crowd's locked in. Certainly Auburn's got their SEC opener next week after this game with Penn State. It'll be against Missouri. Missouri is not very good. Elijah Drinkwitz, to me, is probably on the hot seat now. That was an embarrassment. I mean, they just absolutely got dominated in Manhattan, Kansas. It was 40-12 against Kansas State. So Missouri is going to be coming in struggling. So that's going to be a very winnable game for Auburn. This 5-game home stretch, I said before the season, Auburn needed to go 4-1 or 5-0 for Coach Harsin to have a chance to see a third season, and I still believe that. But I'll tell you what, we're going to go on a break. When we come back, Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live on 3 going to join us and talk some recruiting next here on the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared on the Blitz Sports Radio.
TOC Sports has been there for you. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean? It means for more than 20 years, Alabama's largest orthopedic group has been there providing coverage and care to more schools and student athletes in the Tennessee Valley than any other group. It means whether you are the star football player, the all-region volleyball ace, or someone who hurt their knee in a weekend pickup basketball game, TOC Sports physicians are proud to have the opportunity to care for all your orthopedic needs. It means for parents, coaches, athletes, desk jockeys, or even weekend warriors, TOC Sports physicians continue to meet and exceed the orthopedic and sports medicine needs of our community. But most importantly, during these challenging times, we're here for you now and will continue to be here. So as long as there are players on the field, games to be played, and contests to be won, the orthopedic specialist from TOC Sports will be ready to help. We don't know what the future holds, but you can count on the TOC Sports team to stay committed to you so you can stay in the game. Call 256-539-2728 today and ask to see a TOC Sports physician. Check them out online, also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. Still a place to call for your installation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on two services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Legal Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, here letting you know we are proud supporters of Madison Academy football. Stop into the University Kia today and shop our large selection of new Kias, including the all-new Telluride 8-passenger SUV, the stylish new K5, and sporty new Seltos. Visit universitykia.com to view all our great offers and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia today, because we want to see you in a Kia. Go Mustangs!
At Bryant Bank, we believe your goals are worth chasing, and every step along the way is worth celebrating. From your hopes for the future to the challenges that keep you up at night, we're here for you. Bryant Bankers put care into action to help you live legendary by stepping up when you need us most and doing what's right, even when no one is watching. Come experience a local bank whose people greet you by name and treat you like family. Bryant Bank, member FDIC.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared. I'm Drew DeArmond, and we're going to be talking some Auburn Tigers football recruiting, because this is huge for Auburn this weekend. It's going to be an electric environment inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. They're taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions for only the second time in the history of this series. First time in Auburn as the Penn State Nittany Lions and James Franklin come down. James Franklin never coached against Auburn in Jordan-Hare. He did make a trip to Tuscaloosa as head coach of Vanderbilt, but when he was in the league, but never to Auburn. This will be his first trip. He, of course, beat the Auburn Tigers last year in a hard-fought contest, 28-20, a game Auburn could have easily won. So I know they're definitely waiting in the weeds here. This is a huge fork in the road game for Brian Harsin and the staff. We talked about that in the first segment, and we're going to talk some Tigers recruiting. And matter of fact, great timing for us. He just updated the recruiting list, which looks like it's going to be star-studded, and not just in football, basketball as well. Coach Bruce Pearl has built a top 10 program at Auburn nationally, and they're recruiting at a very high level, going to bring some outstanding recruits on campus this weekend, especially in the 2024 class. And we're going to break all of that down with the recruiting editor for Auburn Live on 3, and that's Jeffrey Lee, and he's been good enough to join us this morning for a few minutes on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Jeffrey, you're with Drew DeArmond here on the Blitz Sports Radio. Really appreciate the time. How are you this morning? Do we have you, Jeffrey? I guess we're having some issues here. We're going to be trying to patch Jeffrey Lee through to get him on here on the Blitz Sports Radio. We're going to talk some Auburn recruiting when we can get Jeffrey Lee on the line with us to talk some Tigers. But again, we're going to get Jeffrey on here and talk some Auburn recruiting. A star-studded list going to be with us, are going to be in Auburn this weekend, and we'll look to get him on the show here in just a couple of minutes. I think we're having a little bit of an issue with the phone line, and so once we get Jeffrey Lee on here, though, we'll be talking some Auburn as we preview this recruiting weekend as Penn State is coming to the plains of Auburn, and we're going to talk some Tigers recruiting with Jeffrey Lee, who, as we said, just updated that recruiting list for the Tigers, and as we said, it's going to be immense both for football and basketball, no question about it. As we are going to talk some Tigers recruiting for a few minutes with Jeffrey. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to try to get Jeffrey Lee on the phone lines here on the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
The Blitz has been called.
TOC Sports has been there for you. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean? It means for more than 20 years, Alabama's largest orthopedic group has been there providing coverage and care to more schools and student athletes in the Tennessee Valley than any other group. It means whether you are the star football player, the all-region volleyball ace, or someone who hurt their knee in a weekend pickup basketball game, TOC Sports physicians are proud to have the opportunity to care for all your orthopedic needs. It means for parents, coaches, athletes, desk jockeys, or even weekend warriors, TOC Sports physicians continue to meet and exceed the orthopedic and sports medicine needs of our community. But most importantly, during these challenging times, we're here for you now and will continue to be here. So as long as there are players on the field, games to be played, and contests to be won, the orthopedic specialists from TOC Sports will be ready to help. We don't know what the future holds, but you can count on the TOC Sports team to stay committed to you so you can stay in the game. Call 256-539-2728 today and ask to see a TOC Sports physician. Check them out online, also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
A wise man once said, if you take care of old folks and children, everything in the middle will take care of itself.
Hi, I'm Danny Aldridge, lawyer in Alabama and Tennessee. In the next 20 years, the number of those folks over 65 years of age will more than double. In our golden years, the most important goal is to be treated with dignity and have control over doing what makes you grateful with those you love. At the Aldridge Law Firm and the Legal Town Center, we're dedicated to help you with these goals, and we'll be there when life throws you those inevitable curveballs. Let us assist you with your legal needs, whatever they may be or become. You may reach us by phone at 256-534-3188 or online with Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Just remember, we're here to help. Whether it's personal injury, wrongful death, fraud and cheat, or estate planning made complete, we're here to help.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared. We apologize for the little snafu there, but Steve Moulton got us fixed up, and now we do have the recruiting editor for Auburn Live on 3, part of on3sports.com. Jeffrey Lee is with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Jeffrey, thank you for being patient and staying with us. How are you this morning? How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I got you. Sorry about that. But, yeah, we are here with Jeffrey Lee, on3sports.com, recruiting editor, and we've got him on the phone line. And it's good timing because, again, this is a huge recruiting weekend for Auburn, no doubt about that. We wanted to break it down with you. I know you just updated the recruiting list football-wise. We know it's going to be a huge one for basketball as well. But for our listeners, and again, we are just in the first few weeks of this show, bringing everyone 5 days a week recruiting conversation. Talk about how big a recruiting weekend this is, especially for Brian Harsin, because as we had a first segment of our show, the big thing is it's going to be this is a big fork in the road game for this staff, because I know the football-wise it's been off to a little bit of a slow start in recruiting, but it can start really building momentum if they can play well and get a win in Jordan-Hare, because I think this is going to be a huge environment. This is going to be an electric crowd. This was a great game last year that Auburn nearly pulled out on the road, but this is going to be a golden opportunity for Brian Harsin and this new staff that he's tweaked to make an impression on a lot of great players.
Yeah, they've had this game circled on the calendar for a while now, and not just for football purposes, but for recruiting purposes. They were planning on having this a big recruiting weekend for a while now, and it's actually shaping up to be maybe even bigger than we thought. Even the first two games, Mercer and San Jose State, you don't really expect a large gathering of recruits, or at least top recruits. And
right.
Auburn, in back-to-back weeks, has had five-star recruits on campus, including five-star DB Tony Mitchell, an Alabama commitment this past Saturday. Quay Russaw and James Smith both came that first game against Mercer. And the two five-stars from Montgomery, Russaw and Smith, are expected to be back this weekend. So a lot of big-name game, big-time recruits expected to be for the Penn State game, both from the 2023 and 2024 classes. So, the atmosphere is something that these Auburn coaches want these recruits to be able to see, and probably not going to get a better one at home this year with Alabama and Georgia both on the road.
That's a great point, and we did make that point earlier in our first segment that I thought it was significant just because it just shows that Auburn is a huge factor. And, of course, I know they're less than an hour from home, but, I mean, James Smith, Quay Russaw, they could have gone to the Mercedes-Benz Dome and watched Georgia, who's definitely on their short list, play against Oregon, or they could have gone to Alabama to watch Alabama take on Utah State. Certainly, they're considering Ohio State as well. They were, they played Notre Dame. They could have gone to that environment. I thought it was significant that they ended up on the Plains to see Auburn take on Mercer and get that 42-16 win. I think it shows Jimmy Brumbaugh's done a good job with those guys.
Yeah, Jimmy Brumbaugh, Brock Bellantoni, the edge coach, the new edge coach. Zach Etheridge is spearheading their recruitment as well. That's kind of his area. But, those two guys, we talk about getting people on campus and getting them on campus against Penn State. It's the recruiting weekend. That's fine and dandy. But these kids want to see Auburn win. They want to see – James Smith has already said, when asked what can Auburn do to increase their chances, and he said win, beat Bama. Get back to where he expects Auburn to be. So, getting these kids on campus is one thing, but being able to – being able to capitalize on those visits, get a win. I mean, just imagine the atmosphere inside that stadium Saturday night. When Auburn was able to pull it out.
Well, and for our listeners too, talk about the recruiting list. I know you just said James Smith and Quay Russaw. We'll see Tony Mitchell could easily be back on campus for that game as well. He came last weekend. What's it looking like, at least early? I know that things can change. There'll be visitors added certainly throughout the week. But what is the list looking like right now?
I think the official visitor list, they're trying to keep the official visitors, for those recruiting fans not familiar, official visitor is an all-expense paid trip.
Yes.
You only get 5 of those, 1 to each school. So they've got 4, maybe 5 guys coming in for official visits this weekend, 3 commitments, but to me, all eyes are going to be on Janoris Wilson. He's a 3-star offensive tackle from Lakeland, Florida. Auburn, the offensive line is such a huge position of need in this class, and they have one guy in Braden Joyner committed right now, and I'm expecting them to take as many as 6 high school kids from on the offensive line. So Janoris Wilson is definitely a big-time guy to keep an eye on as far as an offensive lineman if you understand how important offensive line is in Auburn's class. To me, Jaden Osbury, 4-star linebacker who's committed to Notre Dame from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His brother, Austin, is a freshman defensive back at Auburn. And Auburn is, he's pretty much the top linebacker on the board. Linebacker, another position of need in this class. So getting him back on campus. Who was here? I think he came for the Mercer game. Yeah, it was the Mercer game. He came for the Mercer game. He's coming back this weekend. And Auburn would certainly love for him to join his brother. Also doesn't hurt that Notre Dame is, 0-6, or at least that's how it feels.
Right.
Take a little shot at the Irish there. Darren Reed, 4-star defensive lineman from Columbus, Georgia, right down the road. He's committed to LSU. He came to Mercer. He's coming back for Penn State, and he'll be back for at least another game. So I think he is a big-time guy to keep an eye on. Another offensive lineman that we're tracking very closely is 4-star DJ Chester from Conyers, Georgia. Bo Hughley, 4-star offensive tackle from Langston Hughes in Fairburn, Georgia. He's committed to Georgia. He's coming back. And then Jelani Thurman, the 4-star tight end from the same school as Hughley, is coming back. He's committed to Ohio State. So a lot of and those are just the 4-stars. I mean, there's some guys higher on Auburn's board than maybe on 3's board as far as the rankings go. Marcelius Pulliam is a 3-star linebacker from Tyrone. He's coming over. He's probably number 2 or number 3 behind Jaden Osbury on the linebacker board. And then Tyler Scott is another guy to keep an eye on. He's a 6'2", 180-pound cornerback from Mableton, Georgia. He's coming over. So he and I think Auburn's got a really good shot with him. Then one more as far as offensive linemen go. You got Paul I'm terrible at this. Paul Mubinga. I can't say that once, let alone 3 times in a row. Paul Mubinga from Beaufort, Georgia. He's committed to LSU. He's coming over. Auburn just offered him. So a lot of guys Auburn is very much in the thick of it with. A couple of these guys I just mentioned, Auburn, the visit could put them over the top. I think a couple of these guys could commit shortly thereafter this visit. And so it could be a huge momentum boost for Auburn in this 2023 class. And we haven't even gotten to 2024. There's going to be studs from the 2024 class coming as well, as they have already this season.
Yeah, they have, no doubt. And that's why we were saying this is such a fork-in-the-road game for Coach Harsin and the staff. If you can get a lot of this momentum going, it can dramatically change things. I know they've already moved up several spots, in the On3 recruiting rankings. I know they are. We were looking at it. I know they're right now. They're 12th in the SEC, but still, I believe they're up to 36th overall. Which, when you think about it, just a few weeks ago they were in the 50s and the 60s. So Auburn, they've improved. They're standing greatly. They've added some pieces to the puzzle, including two guys that are edge players that I think have a chance to be, really good players. We talked about Jeremiah Cobb in the first segment. And Cobb, I know you guys are tracking him, 17 TDs already for Montgomery Catholic, Jeff. He's making a big-time push to be on the short list for Mr. Football in the state of Alabama.
Absolutely. That kid can do it all. Really like him. Talking about the rankings, though, Auburn doesn't have the amount of commitments that most of these schools in the top 20. But one thing you got to point out is Auburn, I think, is number 16 in average star rating. So they've got quality over quantity. They've only got 8 commitments, but they're averaging basically a 4-star across the board. So they're top 20, almost top 15 in the country when it comes to quality of commitment.
Yeah, they are, and they've added Ashley Williams. I talked to David Brewerton on this show, really high on Ashley. They flipped him from Nebraska, an edge rusher who I think has a bright future, especially when he builds up his frame, no doubt. DeQuavius Sorey from Chipley, Florida, wide receiver, added just a few short days ago in late August on the 26th. He's someone I know that Ike Hilliard really likes a lot. He could even be a DB, but he adds some explosiveness. And I know you guys are tracking another wide receiver that's going to be making his decision on Thursday, where Auburn could get some more good news.
Yeah, I was going to say in about 48 hours, I expect Auburn to add another 4-star recruit to the commitment list, and Adam Hopkins, who took an official visit this past weekend for the San Jose State game. A lot of people had him pegged to Texas A&M back in the summer. But Ike Hilliard, man, I tell you what, in the first 8 months that he's been on campus,
a stud, man.
Recruited, he has been a stud, and he works quietly. They love his NFL background. He knows how to relate to these kids. He's been there. He's been in their shoes before, so he knows what Mama wants to hear and what these kids, want to hear. So he's done a fantastic job with Auburn's wide receiver recruiting. Expect him to get that 4-star wide receiver Adam Hopkins Thursday morning. And then, last week Auburn had Jamarian Harkless. He's a big defensive tackle. He's 6'3", 330 pounds. He runs a 4.8 40-yard dash, and he came in for an official visit this past week. And I think it's going to be sooner rather than later that we see him commit. I actually just put in a recruiting prediction this morning for him to end up at Auburn. So Hopkins, Jamarian Harkless, I think Tyler Scott could be close. I think Janoris Wilson could be close. So this weekend could be pivotal for Auburn. And I'm not saying that it's going to be dependent on whether or not these kids commit. I expect them to go ahead and commit anyways. But this would putting Auburn top with some of these bigger elite guys.
Yeah, it really could. And if they get you talked about those handful of targets that Auburn seems to be trending and leading for. You add those to the puzzle, then this is a class that jumps from 36. And you talk about being in the top 16 with star rating, but this class could be in the top 20 in a short period of time.
Yeah, overall rankings, absolutely. They need some more quantity to get up in those rankings. Right now they've got 8. You're looking at 9 on Thursday, maybe 10 next week. And maybe 2 more. I think they could be at 12 before the end of the month.
Well, that would be a lot of recruiting momentum. And I've already stated this. We've seen LSU struggle against Florida State. So, to me, and Missouri against Kansas State. So, Auburn has got a chance if they can upset Penn State. And right now it would be an upset. They are an underdog.
Yeah.
But I do think this environment is going to be insane at Jordan-Hare Stadium. I think it's going to be a great crowd. I certainly think Penn State already had trouble with Purdue. I think they're going to get Auburn's best shot. I do think the coaching staff, and I mean, this is, if you follow college football, when you see how a schedule is set up, certainly Auburn should have played better against San Jose State, but it's a situation of Auburn is the better team. They a lot of times don't show a lot. I'm expecting to see Auburn's best and some different wrinkles and a very strong performance against Penn State, Jeff. It's a feeling that I have, but I felt this all summer that this is a game that I think Auburn can get.
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I think me and a lot of the Auburn fans will be disappointed if Auburn doesn't come out of this with a win. Two things have to happen, in my opinion. Don't turn the dang ball over and limit your penalties, something Auburn had a terrible time with against San Jose State. That's why they struggle so badly. Turnovers, penalties. You cannot have those in a game like this coming Saturday against Penn State. Limit those, man. I feel like Auburn should be able to come out on top.
Oh, they could, and that it would be immense. Now, you mentioned Janoris Wilson from Lakeland, Florida. The offensive tackle. I know that they've been kind of since the midpoint of the summer. They've been kind of circling the wagons with this guy and zeroing in on him. Does he have a definitive date yet? Because to me, he seems like a guy that if Auburn performs well and gets this win, that we could see him committed in the coming days.
Yeah, I do too. He was actually one of those 12 I was talking about.
Exactly.
By the end of the month. Yeah. I feel like Auburn has made him a top priority along the offensive line. He's the guy they want to get in this class as soon as possible. They need a foundation. You talked about Ashley Williams, Wilkie Denard at the edge position. Auburn's biggest need on defense is edge. They need 4 guys there because they're losing everyone except for Dylan Brooks this year. So they've got to restock the cabinets with edges. So they wanted to get some guys on board, some guys that they can build on for this class. They don't have that on offensive line right now. They've got Braden Joyner, who's been committed for 6 years, it feels like, and he's right down the road. They need tackles. They need swing guys who can play inside or outside, and Janoris Wilson absolutely fits that bill. So they have made him a top priority, and everything goes well this weekend. I really feel like he could be committed on that commitment list by the end of the month.
And we're talking to Jeffrey Lee. He's the recruiting editor for Auburn Live on 3. Works with our good friends Justin Hokanson and also Cole Pinkston and Keith Niebuhr. Keith Niebuhr, I don't know that Keith ever sleeps. It seems sometimes. Yeah.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah, I mean.
He does not stop.
He does not. He's unreal. I've known Keith for years. He gets out on the road. He's a grinder. Mm-hmm. He's also unofficially one of our golf historians and golf correspondents with all the traveling he does with that. But Jeff, I also would be remiss if I didn't ask you about basketball recruiting.
Yeah.
We know what Bruce Pearl has built at Auburn, a top 10 program, a program that's been to the Final Four, was number 1 in the country last year, but it looks like a lot of star power will be on campus basketball-wise this weekend as well.
Absolutely, man. Bruce Pearl knows how to take advantage of opportunities, whether it be football, baseball, or basketball, and he's certainly going to do it this weekend. He's got Peyton Marshall. I think he was the number 7 center in the 2024 class. He's coming in for an official visit. The number 5 point guard in the country, Tahad Pettiford's coming down from New Jersey for an official visit. Those guys are 2 2024s, and Auburn's going to have a big 2024 class. So Pearl and them are looking, ahead. They've got Aiden Holloway committed in the 2023 class, but and they may take 1 or 2 more in this class. But the 2024 class, they're going to be losing a lot that year off the roster, so it's going to be a big class. And so I think they're both top 60 players. I think Pettiford is the top 30 guy, number 5 point guard, number 2 overall player, New Jersey. Ira Bowman has done a fantastic job recruiting that area for Auburn. He's got another guy coming in this weekend. And then keep an eye on 5-star power forward Ace Bailey. He is a Jabari Smith type talent. He's number 7 overall in the country, but he's the number 1 power forward and the number 2 overall player in Georgia. So Auburn has definitely made a big priority out of him, along with LeBaron Philon from down in Mobile. So I'm expecting this list. We've got 2 official visitors. Ace Bailey is on an unofficial visit, presumably. but we'll have a better list. I'm expecting a lot more unofficial visitors for Auburn. Bruce Pearl will have these guys. He will want them to see the fans and the atmosphere inside Jordan-Hare Saturday night.
Well, and I know I love doing this show live because we have breaking news sometimes, and of course we were just bragging on Keith Niebuhr, and he just retweeted something from one of your correspondents at Auburn Live on 3, and that's Ellie Oldham. But Derek Hall has let it slip that there will be orange face masks this Saturday afternoon for Auburn. Personally, I like them. I liked the white ones when they went to Happy Valley and Penn State and with the white uniforms, but the orange face mask, for whatever reason, I know that harkens back to the early days of Coach Dye, but I really like the orange face mask. I think it kind of sets the helmet off a little bit.
I thought the best uniforms last year were the white on white at Penn State, the white face mask. I thought the blue jerseys with the orange face mask were the best uniforms. So good to see that. I know some fans were freaking out that there might be some orange jerseys. But,
right.
But the orange face mask, to me, they look fantastic. I think that's a good look.
No doubt. And I guess as we're wrapping it up with the last couple of minutes with Jeffrey Lee, and we've been very happy to bring him into the Blitz Sports Radio family and onto the Recruiting Blitz. Thank you for your patience with us. How many more names? Who are some of the other guys maybe to watch for that we may be adding that haven't been confirmed yet? But I know you and Keith and everybody track these kids, and do a great job on an hour-to-hour basis. But we know the recruiting list is going to continue to be added on to. But who are maybe another name or two maybe to watch for?
Ooh, so a lot of times when these kids are committed to other schools, especially to rivals, you won't hear their names very often, and so that's kind of the ones I'm keeping an eye on. I wouldn't be surprised to see Brock Glenn, the quarterback who's committed to Ohio State, on campus. Inger Fraud from who is committed to Arkansas. Florida State Keldrick Falk is the guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Gabriel Harris, who's committed to Georgia, 4-star edge. I'm just going down my hot board, which I'll have an update on those tomorrow. Grayson Howard from who's committed to South Carolina. A lot of these kids that are committed elsewhere that Auburn continues to recruit, those kids aren't going to put it out there that they're going to visit Auburn. So it's going to be tough to find. You may not know that they're visiting until that you see them walk out of the tunnel before the game on Saturday. So I would say Conrad Hussey, who is a 4-star DB, who's committed to Penn State. Dakari Nelson's already coming. He's committed to Penn State. They want to get some of these guys on campus like that, especially if Auburn can pull out a win. Cedric Hawkins from Ohio State. A lot of these guys, like I said, that are committed to other schools that have kind of shut their recruitment down, at least publicly, you won't see their names until they show up. So those are the guys you go down the list on the hot board, or even on the offer list on all three, and look at some of those guys committed elsewhere and who aren't already on my list, and think that they're a possibility to show up on Friday or on Saturday.
Well, great stuff from Jeffrey Lee and Keldrick Fall. That kid's a stud. Saw him play at the state basketball tournament. So well put together. And I know it was a disappointment for Auburn when he committed to Florida State, but they're continuing to recruit him. And I know it would be really massive to get him on campus and potentially flip him away from the Seminoles. Well, great stuff, my friend. Go ahead.
Hold on, look, real quick.
Yeah.
Sean Tompkins is the guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Connor Liu, 4-star lineman, committed to Miami. Rockwez McElderry. It's not McElderry.
McElderry. Yeah, I have trouble with that too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's what's Greg McElroy, right?
Yeah.
So, but I always want to say Rockwez McElderry, but it's McElderry. He's committed to Alabama. He's a guy who's been visited Auburn a lot. Braden Joyner's cousin. I wouldn't be surprised to see him. And also Kelton Smith, 4-star offensive tackle, committed to Georgia. He's from right down the road in Columbus. So those are some guys I'll be keeping an eye on.
No doubt. Well, Jeffrey, as we wrap it up with you, let everybody know how to follow you, Keith, and all you guys in Cole's coverage on Auburn Live on 3.
Yeah, go to Auburn Live on 3. Get signed up now. This is a perfect opportunity. We've got a 1 week free, so no obligation for you, at least monetarily, and this will be a great time to do it because for the next week we're going to have some blowout coverage on Auburn Live on 3.
No doubt. Well, thank you for staying with us. We appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. We look forward to having you on your Recruiting Blitz yet again. Great Auburn conversation, and have a great rest of your week.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's Jeffrey Lee. We're going to go on our final break and wrap up this edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio with D Squared.
TOC Sports has been there for you. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what does that mean? It means for more than 20 years, Alabama's largest orthopedic group has been there providing coverage and care to more schools and student athletes in the Tennessee Valley than any other group. It means whether you are the star football player, the all-region volleyball ace, or someone who hurt their knee in a weekend pickup basketball game, TOC Sports physicians are proud to have the opportunity to care for all your orthopedic needs. It means for parents, coaches, athletes, desk jockeys, or even weekend warriors, TOC Sports physicians continue to meet and exceed the orthopedic and sports medicine needs of our community. But most importantly, during these challenging times, we're here for you now and will continue to be here. So as long as there are players on the field, games to be played, and contests to be won, the orthopedic specialists from TOC Sports will be ready to help. We don't know what the future holds, but you can count on the TOC Sports team to stay committed to you so you can stay in the game. Call 256-539-2728 today and ask to see a TOC Sports physician. Check them out online, also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Here's Bobby White from Woody Anderson Ford on their service department.
President